Hi, my name is Timothy Check, and this is my extra credit presentation video for the cybersecurity final paper. Um, I found this topic pretty interesting, and we always hear in the news little comings and goings of someone got hacked or someone was breached. A big part of what drew me to this type of discussion was kind of seeing how not only different countries respond to some of these events, but how different corporations also respond. Um, the biggest part of my focus on this class was the way that these nations and countries present themselves in the public sphere. Social media has become something a lot more accessible to almost every person. At this point, Facebook has nearly 2 billion users. So a solid almost quarter of the population of Earth has a Facebook account. And hundreds of millions of people have accounts on the various other sites. The Chinese social media app, Sina Weibo, has more users than almost the population of North America combined. So, just to put that in perspective, it's become so big, so in your face, that a lot of people are still adjusting to how do you keep yourself safe online? How do you get that serotonin from talking to other people online? How do you connect with people and how do you still stay safe? Um, a large part of my findings were from news articles such as Politico, the BBC, as well as many government official web pages. Those I used more as a reference point. Because obviously, if you're doing an assignment about various governments or companies, you can link the government or company website, and that can be helpful to give you a base and allow other people to explore it. But I also wanted to find articles and journals that were going to come at it from a more neutral perspective, or at the very least, we're going to consider multiple points of view if they were going to have a bias either way. Most of my sources I got through just looking at key articles and making sure they were within the last year or two date wise. I think there was one article in there that was from a journal and it was published in 2018, but right around the midpoint, I started also looking at some of the Google Scholar and some articles online. That way, you can find some of these more nuanced and in depth research into this topic. I read several of the journal reviews, and while a lot of it wound up being very technical and I got stuck at some points, I was able to understand the basics. And I think if you were to combine those resources with the highly technical journals that are almost entirely or vastly majority fact based, and they're very impassionate about this subject, which, for a scientific review, I would expect. I combined that with graphics from various websites that pulled this information. I included that in my references. And a lot of it was from news articles from reputable sources, Politico, Reuters, BBC, um, defensenews.net. Uh, a lot of those I got the vast majority of my research from. Uh, Many of them tied back to other scholarly articles that I had referenced or I read in passing and figured out how to get the information from somewhere else. So it's the vast majority of it is saying the same thing, just in a more accessible way. Um, I highly enjoyed this project because I worked on Fort Wainwright as a data clerk for 2 years, and we constantly had updates on our cyber training. I remember hours spent each quarter refreshing all of my classes to stay. And it was interesting to draw a parallel and just think about, okay, do private companies do the same thing? Um, do other governments have the same kind of idea? And how does that play into people interacting on social media? Um, we always hear this narrative usually that other places are the diametric opposite of the US. They do things completely differently. And just taking a minute to look at how China, the European Union, and the United States all safeguard their citizens' cybersecurity, or, take a spying at them like they're apt to do. Um, but it's interesting to see the parallels because so many of the actions are the exact same. It's just the organizations are in a different country and they have different acronyms, and that's really the gist of it. Um, from the private sector point of view, it was also enlightening to see how private companies might take to harvesting your data. There's the saying, if the product is free, then you are the product, you are the payment. And especially Google and YouTube in recent years have taken that to the next level. We've seen people complain about highly personalized and targeted ads, even based when they were on different profiles or in incognito. And it's interesting to see, how do they set their own guidelines to keep people trusting them and demonstrate trustworthiness? And what role does the government have in being that extra presence in the room and having that hand on the shoulder to say, hey, we want you to do the right thing. And we're going to stand here to make sure you do the right action and you choose to do it freely. Um, so it's been nice having that overview, and the class has given me a lot to think about. I'm glad it was able to put some of the more technical aspects and connect it with what I know from just everyday life experiences and from my work. So I had a great deal of fun with this class, and I feel like it was definitely worth my time. I hope that the next semesters, as I am almost done graduating, goes well. And thank you, everybody.